Hello. Welcome to BAM, BAMeurs. These are our audience. We're talking today with Jason Kunisch, who is a pilot for, I don't know which airlines you're with.
If we could say, pilot
you're
with
pilot.
a major U.S. airline. Off air, I can tell you who it is, but
no. Okay. And you are also one of the founding members, it seems, of Freedom Flyers.
Yes,
so
U.S. Freedom Flyers.
Super. So tell us a little bit about yourself.
Sure. I've been flying professionally now for 20 years. I'm originally from San Diego, California, and went to an aeronautical university, started flying corporate charters and cargo all over North America. And I've been flying with the airline I currently am with for the last 8 years. I fly all over North America, Central America, South America, the Caribbean. So I stretched my wings out a little bit. And also I have a wife and 2 kids, and we have been on the kind of the forefront with the holistic health movement and understanding for about a decade now. And so when this coronavirus and COVID vaccine started coming our way on the radar, if you will, we had our antenna up. And so we were in a position to be wary of it, I guess, and approach it with eyes wide open. And so being in the aviation industry over the last 24 months with the COVID pandemic and shutdowns and everything, also we've been at work on the forefront of trying to, get PPE out, getting vaccines distributed, being recipients of government money. So we've kind of had our fingers in everything one way or the other. And so this is all coming to a head with the aviation industry and the medical industry coming together through these mandates. And so, I was in a position to offer counsel and advice and strategic planning, if you will, to U.S. Freedom Flyers from the very beginning. It started with kind of as an accident when one of the founding members, Josh Yoder, went on the Stu Peters show over the summer, and he was comparing one airline's approach to the vaccines and the mandates versus another. And so then that sparked more debate and discussion, and a group was formed, U.S. Freedom Flyers, and it's now grown into about 85,000 total members. And we have direct contact every week through email, calls, et cetera, with about 35,000. And that represents not just the aviation industry, but all of transportation in the United States, as well as outside of the transportation industry. So passengers, we're advocates for passengers, because we know that today we're talking about vaccines and employment. Tomorrow is going to be we know, we can get into it, vaccines and interstate travel, domestically, but also internationally. And also we know that today we're talking about vaccines. Tomorrow it's going to be a different medical procedure potentially, and your Social Security check, your 401k access, your driver's license, send your kids to school, et cetera. So the discussion, the topic now is vaccines, but really the broader subject is medical freedom and coercion.
I see. Yeah, you already answered a few of my questions concerning the extent of your group. So it's not just pilots, it's other workers in the airline industry and in other transport industries.
Yes, and the pilots, whether it's deserved or not, we're looked up to as leaders. We're at the front of the airplane, just metaphorically. We're the first ones there. We're sitting in the front, and metaphorically, everyone's following us to the destination, right? So we're natural leaders in that sense. And also we're the most out there. If someone wants to talk to someone in the aviation industry, they usually come to a pilot.
Right.
But we're the voice really of a very large group of employees whose voice is not being heard. And they're not being heard by management, they're not being heard by their unions, and they're not being heard by the government who has been elected by the people. And that's very unique. And I don't, correct me here, I don't want to go, I don't know how much I should say. We're in the US, I know the audience is broad and, around the world. I don't know how much education I need to put into my answers, or if it just, so guide me there, if you will.
Well, so what do you mean as far as pilots from international countries, other countries?
Yes. Well, we're in talks and forming a relationship with a group out of Europe. They're called Airliners for Humanity, and they're a group of Lufthansa, Air Swiss, et cetera, who are doing a similar thing to what we're doing here in the United States. However, they've got, it's the European Union and different countries and different flag carriers. It operates a little bit differently than in the United States, but it's a group of people who are airline industry, airline employees who are getting together and saying, we're not going to be coerced into taking or partaking in a medical procedure that, if it weren't for the mandate, we want nothing to do with. So this net is cast very wide. We're also talking to people in Australia and Canada and other places around the world.
Wow. And how concretely are you organizing? What concretely are you doing? Like actions, or what approaches are you taking, and what ground are you gaining?
Here at home or internationally?
First, let's start at home and then internationally. And like, on whatever level it could be, airlines or all together. Are you kind of like all in unison in these actions?
Sure. So the U.S. Freedom Flyers comprises of about 26 different airlines domestically. And we also have Amtrak, Union Pacific. We have employees from Boeing, Lockheed Martin, the Walgreens down the street, everyone in between. And so we're organizing all of that through a message of unity, really, of preserving our rights and our freedoms, specifically when it comes to medical procedures. And so that message is really what is the glue that sticks everything together. We then use media, getting out of the news, spreading our message as much as possible there, staying in touch, communicating with our members through weekly emails, and also and those go out every Friday. And in between the Fridays, if there's a pertinent update that's pressing for a specific company that some of our members are employed by, we send out information for there. We also respond and directly engage with unions. We're finding that not just in the United States, but also around the world, unions, even though they've traditionally been representatives of the membership, through this COVID vaccine thing, they are actually in cahoots with the government and management, and they're failing in their duty to fairly represent the members. And so we're calling them to task on that. We're also responding with, none of us are doctors. However, we have a certain understanding of how the world works. And we are calling and putting the members of these, or excuse me, the leaders of these unions to task regarding their messaging out to the membership, that there's only one way, there's only one option, and that is through a forced vaccine program. And we're saying, hold on, slow down, let's educate the people. And we're trying to encourage individual engagement, because, we've got 85,000 total, give or take, and we've got 35,000 directly that we're in contact with. We can't do it for them. And that's not what we want. We want to empower the individual to fight, and we want to be leaders in that. We want to lead, right, and that way. So the union is obligated to fairly represent every viewpoint within the group, within the union, and they're not doing that. They're not doing that through two avenues. in the religious world, there's sins of omission and sins of commission, right? That to use that analogy, is a sin of omission. What they're doing is they're not saying certain things to the membership to guide them in a certain way. And so we're calling them to task on that.
Okay. And you talked about the media. Now, of course, on the media, I've seen, and this is kind of why I started getting interested in this subject, that they were talking about like flight cancellations and staffing issues. And I'm wondering if there are media that do give you a voice and let you are aware of really what you're truly about, or is it more underground? How does that work?
Well, we've been on Fox News, OAN, Newsmax. We've done some podcasts, the Patrick Coffin podcast, others. There was a French newspaper that we just did an interview with last week.
I saw François, yeah.
Yes. And so, and what we're doing is we're engaging that media through just telling the truth, telling what real life people are going through in the companies and just personally. And so that's what we're doing there.
On a day-to-day basis, do you find it difficult, for example, how do your vaccinated colleagues, what is the relationship with them? How are they with you or your other, be it pilots or flight attendants? How do they support you? How does that work?
So this is, as we said, this is an issue. Today we're talking about vaccines, but really it's an issue of medical freedom. And so right. if you have two pilots, just say, for example, one is vaccinated and one is not, a lot of times the vaccinated pilot supports our cause because they realize that tomorrow it could be some medical procedure that they don't want to be a part of. And so this eroding of rights affects everybody. In addition to that, if any of us have been alive long enough, we remember the term peak oil, where there's only so much oil in the ground and there's a certain amount of production, right? I'm calling it now peak vaccination rate. I think we've reached peak vaccination rate, and that's important because people who have chosen over the last 10 months to freely go and get a vaccine for whatever personal reason they have, and I think that's great. A lot of them have now just become more aware of what's going on. They're questioning more, and a lot of times they regret that decision. And so you see countries like Israel, parts of the UK, who say, well, if you don't have a booster, you're no longer considered vaccinated. Well, wait a second. I've already gone through round 1, 2, 3. And now, for example, in Israel, you need shot number 4. Otherwise, you get your green pass or your freedom pass or whatever they're calling it revoked. So now I think we've seen the highest number of total fully vaccinated people. And over time, that number is going to come down because the government, the WHO, the CDC, the NIH, all of these entities are changing the rules. We've all been sold a bill of goods early on, and they're changing the script. And I think that they're doing that on purpose. It's kind of like the frog in the beaker type of thing. Yeah,
exactly. And I've heard that also because of the booster shot, people are saying, okay, I did my 2 first shots, but the booster, no. And so maybe that's making your numbers grow because people are starting to question the narrative and really wondering what this is about. And I saw that there's also, I wanted to ask you about the deadline for the mandate. Is it 24th of November?
Well, yes, it was originally. So and
then it's put to 4th of January. Is that it?
Yes.
Yeah.
And so what we're seeing too is September 9th of 21, President Biden came out and said, we're going to have these mandates. And the mandates are several. One is for companies with 100 or more employees, which is going to be policed through OSHA and enforced through OSHA.
What is OSHA?
OSHA is the acronym is Occupational
Safety and Health.
Safety and Health Association, maybe. We'll have to look.
Okay, don't worry, I'll find it. Okay.
So and that's the governing body in the U.S. that is in charge of all these corporations and the safety rules, et cetera.
And enforcing.
Well, traditionally they haven't been too much enforcing, and they also don't have the manpower really to enforce all of this. And so that's also why this has been delayed. It's now November 5th. It's been 2 full months since President Biden announced that he was going to have a mandate. And just this week, they finally came out with a ruling. So they've been spending the last 2 months trying to figure out how they're going to make this happen. So the mandates are the OSHA thing, but also federal contractors, which currently is what the airlines are being trapped under. And so airlines, because of their contracts doing rescue missions, if you remember the thing after over the summer with Afghanistan, a lot of commercial airliners went over and did evacuations. Those are government contracts. And so because we contract with the government for things like that, we are government contractors. The employees are.
Right.
And so that's what's tripping us up. So originally there was a deadline of December 8th for full compliance. And the companies and the government said, basically, if you are not fully vaccinated by December 8th, you no longer work here on December 9th. So that put everyone on their heels going, what's going on here? And that really allowed U.S. freedom flyers and all of us working in this to really go full force ahead to push back. And we've seen now the government and specifically the companies ease their stance. Now it's been, well, wait a second, you're not going to be fired. We'll accommodate you. And here's the accommodation process. Okay, well, through religious exemptions and medical exemptions. All right, well, the problem with that, though, is that we don't know what the accommodation is long term. Is it going to be masking? Is it going to be... You're
still trapped in the system.
We're still trapped. And so because it was December 8th, you had to have, and that's fully vaccinated, and you're not considered fully vaccinated until you've been vaccinated. You had your last shot plus 14 days. So December 8th minus 14 days is November 24th. So everyone's paperwork was November 24th, and they didn't do the math there that happens to be the day before Thanksgiving. I mean, these people thinking of these things, I don't think they're thinking. So we've pushed back. So now this week, the OSHA ruling has come out. January 4th is the enforcement date on that. And so they've now married those two dates up. They've pushed back the December 8th and the November 24th. Everything is now January 4th.
Okay, because I saw also that there's the Freedom Flyers has prepared a statement by the Health Freedom Defense Fund, which is representing you through Davilier Law Group, preparing a challenge to the legality of the airline's implementation of religious exemptions. Can you talk about that?
Sure. So the lawsuit is going to be there's multiple avenues here. So, and we're challenging each of these things individually and collectively. So, number one is the OSHA ruling. We're pushing back, we're suing against that to protect really all companies and all employees of companies who have more than 100 employees. So that's one thing. That's one lawsuit. The other lawsuit is having to do with federal contractors. Again, that's what the airlines specifically are. We're about to file suit in the state of Florida. And the attorney has asked that we don't say too much about that case.
Say what you need to say and what,
It is going to be filed in the state of Florida. There's a lot of reasons for that, which will become evident here in the next week as this story continues to evolve. And so that's one avenue there. Now, the last part is Title VII. And Title VII is a part of the 1964 Civil Rights Act. And that has to do with an employer cannot discriminate against an employee for age, sex, religion, sexual orientation, creed, skin color, all those things that are on those forms that we see as we get a job. So with that Title VII is the process of getting religious exemptions. An employer legally cannot ask you what your religion is. What part or tenet of your religion prohibits you from getting a COVID-19 vaccine? However, they're doing that, and they're intimidating employees and kind of like doing a little bit of a bait and switch, a trick in the questioning to intimidate and scare off applicants and to try to force them and coerce them even more into getting the vaccine. And so the third part of this lawsuit and legal front is also being fought through Liberty Counsel. And so they have filed suit, I think it's now 2 weeks ago, against the federal government on behalf of the military, I think nurses, first responders, and I know for sure federal contractors to protect us in this, in all of this. You kind of asked me a little bit earlier and I went sideways with it, but I'll circle back to it, is the employee to employee relationship. So there is intimidation on some levels within some companies and within some work groups, where if one employee learns that another is, let's say, not vaccinated, they will publicly shame and dox through social media accounts that unvaccinated employee. And it's not just happening here. In fact, just today, before I got on the call, I landed and I was talking to a flight attendant on the employee bus, and she recognized me through the work that we're doing. So she stopped and talked to me for about 25 minutes and asked me direct questions about all of this. And she was relaying a story that her colleagues, her flight attendant colleagues, are openly intimidating her and her other colleagues who are like-minded. And so it's causing her to be quiet. She's like, how do you have the confidence? And she used other words, but the guts to speak about this. And I said, well, first, people's lives are at stake. You know, that's number one. And like I said to you earlier, we have now become the voice for those who are not being heard.
I was talking to Kate, your media representative, who was talking about the Zoom calls that you have, all of you, just to keep the morale of everyone high, because a lot of people are getting discouraged, just probably the pressure, the deadlines, their own livelihood, the uncertainty. So yeah, it's great that you've come together to unite and find ways to fight back. And so what I see, you have the legal, these suits or these trials, and then I suppose the negotiations with the unions, and then probably just the dialogue with your own colleagues.
Correct.
Right. I've also heard that pilots, I don't know, I heard the other day at a pilot getting sick or even dying in air after his second vaccination, something like that. I don't know if pilots are able to be, like, if they feel sick from side effects, are they, what's happening with that? Because that's scary too.
It is scary. And I want to just put out there first and foremost that if you're in an airplane, you're safe. There's no risk of crashing or there's no inflated risk of crashing. Obviously,
I didn't think so.
Flying an airplane, right? But the system is safe, and I want to make sure that is known before I answer this question, because it could very easily. We got to walk a tightrope on this one, because we can't put any doubt into the system, because there is no degradation of safety. The paramount mission of aviation, besides getting you from point A to point B, is to do it safely. And if anybody in the system doesn't think it's happening safely on the front end, on the front line, we don't get in the airplane, we don't start the engines, we don't take off if at any point we think this isn't safe to continue. So I want to make sure that's clear. However, it is a concern, because if you say, just as an example, one out of every however many people who have gotten a vaccine have had an adverse reaction, a blood clot, a heart enlargement, a brain issue, pulmonary, whatever the issue is, the statistic is one in however many. There is a known number. Well, in the aviation community, they're saying that number is zero, which is statistically impossible. So so you can, I think, deduce from that someone isn't being fully transparent, and whether that's the unions, whether that's the FAA, we don't know. Now, when it comes to these stories of these incapacitated pilots, again, that's why you have two pilots. Again, that's why you have all of these safety measures in place to catch anything that may happen in flight. So again, there's no safety degradation. However,
Right.
it is concerning. We don't know, and we can't confirm at this time whether or not those stories of these pilots becoming incapacitated is directly because of the COVID vaccine.
Okay.
And that, I think, is due to a natural bias within the system. A lot of times in the when aviation and medicine combine, it relies on a system that is self-reporting. So if let's just say I get the vaccine and I have a negative reaction to it, nobody's going to know about it unless I self-report. And so, of course, if I self-report, I can't fly anymore. I lose my livelihood. And so there's almost a bias not to,
right.
a lot of times.
Right.
And so that's a consideration. But to answer your question directly, I can't confirm one way or the other that it was directly result because of the COVID vaccine. However, there is suspicion.
Okay. Okay. And I was also really inspired by the reaction of the passengers. Can you tell me about that? I'd like to know more about that.
We're getting email after email. It's pretty inspiring, actually, because it keeps our motivation high. We're getting emails every day from not only passengers, but contractors of the airlines. So an airline will contract with another company and say, we need parts, or we need jet engines, or we need napkins, or whatever. And we've received emails and copied letters, authenticated, from CEOs of these other companies, mailing this correspondence to the airline saying, because of your treatment of employees, because of the coercion, and because you're going along with this, we're separating ties. We're going a different way. We're no longer doing business with you. That's number one.
Wow.
Number two, passengers are writing frequent flyer, whether they're the platinum, triple elite, whatever it is for the airline specifically, they're writing us and saying, I'm no longer flying that airline because of the way they're treating you. I fully support what you're doing. And whether it's, calling out sick or whatever the case may be, you're sticking up for yourself, and I'm right there with you. And so we're getting email after email from passengers, and you can also see it. There's planned, I'm drawing a blank on what they're called, but they're attaching signs to their luggage as they walk through the airports. We support aviation. We support, medical freedom. We are anti-coercion.
Wow.
And so, that's going on in the country as well. So we are getting a lot of support from the passengers. And because they also realize that if the government and the employee and the companies can come for us, the passengers are next, and that we don't want that.
Right.
Nobody wants that.
Awesome. Okay, that's great. Wow. And I was wondering, is there anywhere like a website or something that shows the difference in policies between airlines?
That's a really good idea. I'm going to take that suggestion and run with it, and we're going to generate that, because that's a really good idea. It's a way to engage the passengers, to say, all right, this airline is doing this. But I can tell you, just as a point of fact, and this isn't necessarily revolutionary, it's in the news, it has been, United Airlines, they're the first ones to have a mandate that was prior to the federal government's mandate. They did it on their own accord. Delta said, we're not going to mandate it. However, we're going to give you a $250 surcharge on your health insurance. Well, wait a second.
That upped it 15%. I saw that.
Yes. But you don't do that for those who smoke, or those who sit on the couch and eat potato chips. Not that I don't do that sometimes, but it's like we all these other healthy habits that we all should be doing. They're not going out and questioning other employees who have other decisions that they've made for themselves. They're only going after the COVID-19 vaccine, and that's a problem.
Right. Well, I think this is an evolving situation, actually. Even since the first time I was in contact or heard about you guys, when I think I saw something on United Airlines way back, this incident you're talking about, that's when I started getting interested, and I see that it's gotten much bigger just in this month and a half or whatever.
Oh, yeah.
So
Huge.
That's really great. That's really great. Well, I'm just wondering if you want to leave us with a message for our Belgian audience, or for passengers, for the French speaking, because it's all French speaking audience. It's Belgium, France, Canada. Yeah.
First, on behalf of the United States of America and American citizens, for so long, we have seen the Europeans in general, their strength, their grouping, their protesting, they're taking to the streets. And that, I can tell you, not just for myself or my family, but has given a lot of other Americans a lot of confidence. It's shown leadership. It's shown unity, and it's encouraged a lot of people in this country to leave their front door and go out and be a leader themselves. And so I want to say congratulations to you for taking that stand. We see you, and we thank you for doing that. As far as, and I forget the rest of your question there, it was about the message.
Yeah.
Right. In addition to that,
and to passengers, right.
In addition to that, for passengers and employees who are affected by this, you have options, and you have more strength than you realize. The opponent, whatever that is for you, the company, the mandate itself, the government who's imposing it, whatever, however you identify with that, their intention is to isolate you and make you scared. But realize that there's more than just you. There's me, there's everyone else listening, and there's more people who are like-minded than what they want you to think. And so stay strong, be vocal about your feelings. It's okay. It needs to be said how you feel. And also I would say, if you're in a dark place, reach out to somebody, because this is affecting a lot of people. We're getting distress calls, I'll put it that way, from people. We're talking to people for 30, 45 minutes on the phone. We're not trained in these things, but we're fielding crying calls left and right. If you need to get some professional help, I want to say that, but also reach out to each other, hug your neighbor, kiss them, whatever it is, because that's what they don't want you to do. So go ahead and do it, because it's good for you.
Great. Wow. This has really been inspiring. We too really admire your organization and because on our end, our demonstrations and everything, that's really helped us, but it's harder for us to legally and politically make things move, because our representation system is different. And so this reciprocally is inspiring us on your end, how you guys are, working with the hierarchy and really being able to get through from the CEOs or from the government representatives, your representatives, and the lawsuits and everything. So congratulations on that too.
Well, thank you.
But this has really been a very, very inspiring conversation.
Good.
Okay, well, thank you so much, Jason, and we'll keep in touch, and we'll hopefully be able to keep up on the evolution of your cause.
Yes. Well, thank you so much for everything.
Okay.